Party, the original name was Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, right? Is because we knew that our community was under attack, right? Under attack. And so why would we not want to recruit young people, right, in generational structure for our movement, our struggle, and our fight? Keep in mind, right, during the Vietnam War, right, they were drafting 18-year-olds to go overseas to fight, right, to fight in Vietnam. So why the hell are they going to go to fight in Vietnam when we have 18-year-olds fighting right here at home, right? So that species a proposition that we are leading young people into danger. No, they're danger from the day they're born in this country, in a white supremacist country, having experienced over 400 years, 450 years of white supremacy. The legacy of the Black Panther Party is that we established the foundation for Black people to love Black people, right? We raised the foundation for Black people to love humanity.
You are now part of a social experiment.
See now where my limit is. Only got no ohs.
Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us today on the journey towards self-mastery. Today, we're diving into the legacy of one of the most influential and revolutionary organizations in American history, the Black Panther Party. Founded in 1966 by Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale, the party's powerful rally cry, "Power to the People," embodied their commitment to community control, self-defense, and an uncompromising stance to police brutality. Through their 10-point program, the Black Panther Party fought for liberation of Black people, advocating for justice, equality, and an end to systematic oppression. Joining us today to discuss this enduring legacy is a longtime Black Panther Party member and political prisoner, Mr. Jalil Muntaqim, who we had the pleasure of having on the program in a prior episode. Mr. Muntaqim, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, my brother. Assalamu alaikum. Peace, pause, Baragani, Jumbo. I'm doing well. Under the circumstances and what's going on in this country right now, we are in the process of trying to evolve, right, in preparation for what is anticipated from this now fascist government.
So, speaking of, what is happening now, this is, a lot of things sometimes repeat themselves. So when we look at, the Black Panther Party, some people might, call them, you guys radicals or not really understanding the state or the climate at the time and what was actually happening. So before we get started with actually what the Panther Party was, can you talk to us about the social and political climate in the United States around the time before the inception of the party and what was going on?
Absolutely. It's important for people to understand that the party evolved out of the civil rights movement. And when I say the civil rights movement, I'm talking about specifically the Mississippi Democratic Freedom Party. The Mississippi Democratic Freedom Party was led by one of the major sisters that we don't even give honor to, as Fannie Lou Hamer. We should give honor to Fannie Lou Hamer. She was a fighter to her core, and one of the model or the icon of the Mississippi Democratic Freedom Party was the Black Panther, right? And so Huey and Bobby took that picture or took that icon, that the model, I think it's what we call model, right, and a symbol, and then used it for the building of the Black Panther Party. But also understand that the Black Panther Party evolved out of what we call the Civil Rights Movement that transitioned into the Black Power Movement when Willie Ricks and Stokely Carmichael in the March to Selma called for Black Power, right? Mm-hmm. That was a pivotal point from which the movement changed from civil rights into Black Power movement. And as a result of that, and that learning, that understanding, Huey and Bobby began to articulate what it means to be engaged in a Black Power movement. And they developed what is called the Black Panther Party. Black Panther Party, as an organization, tried to deal with the issues of poverty, economic deprivation, social deprivation, the murder and killing of Black people, and everything that was based upon the ideals of the Civil Rights Movement evolving into Black Panther and evolving into the Black Power Movement. The Black Panther Party tried to articulate that in a very coherent, programmatic way. And that's the reason why Huey and evolved. Now, also keep in mind that during the 64, 65, and 66, there was riots going on across the country. All right. particularly after the death of Dr. Martin Luther King, right? That was in '68, right? And by that time, the Black Panther Party was up and rolling, okay? And people was looking for the Black Panther Party for leadership, all right? But Black Panther Party evolved out of the social conditions of militant development in response to racist oppression confronting the Black community.
And what exactly was the Black Panther Party trying to do in this establishment? You know, as a member, like what did you understand that was, you know, you joining was gonna equate to, you know, doing actually?
Actually, build power, right? Build power for the community, Black power, right? The idea of what Black power is, right? When you have control of the resources in your community, you have influence and control of the schools, you have influence and control of the hospitals, of the economic institutions within in your community. For at that time, and which is similar to what today is what is going on today, more often than not, you find the businesses in the Black community are not owned and controlled by Black people, right? We know that the houses and apartments that most Black people live in are not owned and controlled by Black people, right? And so therefore, the schools, as another example, right, are controlled by white people. And so, and that's what they're teaching our children. And so it was the idea of the Black Panther Party to find out ways to build towards the idea where we can control those resources in our community and have some form of influence in terms of the destiny of Black people in this country. And again, as a result of those ideas, those goals and objectives, you find the Black Panther Party was considered a threat to the security of the United States. But even if you just check out the Black Panther Party 10-point platform and program, right, it speaks specifically to what the Black Panther Party wanted. What do we want and what do we believe, right? And the first one is that we want freedom, right? We want power to determine our destiny for the Black community. That's what I just said, right? That Black power to determine our destiny, right? We want full employment for our people, right? At this point in time, the impoverishment of Black people is almost like, well, I think 40%, 50%, right? And in particular, like youth are 40 and 50% unemployed, right, in this country. We want to end the robbery of our white man of our Black community. You know, they establish their businesses in our community and expropriate the wealth from our community. They don't bring nothing back to our community, right? They're just taking from our community. So we want to control the economics of our community. We want decent housing, right? We don't do dilapidated cardboard housing or these projects where you have absentee landlords and no one is taking care of the buildings or taking care of these apartments, right? So we want decent housing, rats and roaches and ants. You know what I'm saying? That was I knew that because I had an experience in my own growing up. Go to the cupboard, get some cereals. You got to pick out the ants and the roaches, right, in order to eat. Yeah, it was that bad, you know.
Yes, sir.
And so we want decent housing. We want an education for our people that exposes the true nature of this decadent American country, right? Yeah, right. Because they don't teach us our history, right? Far as most Black people knew at that time, our history began in slavery, right? There was no history, and not only did it begin in slavery, but we had passive resistance. They didn't even teach us that we rebelled, okay, during the course of the 250 years of chattel slavery, right? That there were rebellions. But they teach us about Nat Turner, right, or Delmar Vesey, or Gabriel Bronson, right? These are the stories that we did not hear in school. And so we had to develop our own educational process. And so we demand so we can educate our people so they have some understanding of who they are and they value who they are and their contribution to the country overall. We want Black men to be exempt from military services. Why are we going out and fight these colonial wars for these corporations, right? And then come back home and get treated as a slave, like get treated as a second-class citizen. Okay, so no, we don't want our people fighting these imperialist wars, these corporate wars. All right, that's basically what it is. Or to extend imperialism around the world, where they continue to exploit, right, and steal the resources of other people, particularly people of color. And so, yeah, we want to exempt our people from the military and engage in that process. We want to completely healthcare. The Black Panther Party started establishing health clinics, right, across this country. That's what we wanted, right? So we sure our people have the best healthcare they possibly can get in this country. So we established our own health clinics. And like the first time health clinic was established in our country as extensively as it was. In fact, it was the Black Panther Party that created the foundations for sickle cell anemia research for that particular disease. No one else was talking about sickle cell anemia until the Black Panther Party started talking about it and started raising those concerns. We want immediate end to police brutality because they be killing us, right? So we know about, majority we don't. Every day they're killing the black, brown, and indigenous people in this country. Yes, that's a fact. Right, so we want to end the police brutality coming into our communities as if they were overseers, right? It's very similar to, because we understand that the police department came out of the overseers, the paddy wagons, the paddy patrollers, the slave patrollers, doing chattel slavery. That's where the police came from, and they function in the same capacity today to contain and control the black population in your ghettos, right, in your slums, in the areas where they designated you black people to live, right? And so we want to end the police brutality in our communities, right? Not only that, we want freedom for all black men in state and federal prison. We want all people free because we know that they did not get a fair trial, right? They didn't get a trial based upon their peers, being judged by their peers, right? More often than not, they got judged by white folks, right? 12 white people making a determination of the life of black people, right? And so we want our people out of the prison system. Not only that, out of the prison system, but we understood the prison system to be a slave system, okay? So why would we want to have our people in slavery, right? The penal system in the United States is, in fact, a slave system. The United States is a slave nation, right? By law, pursuant to the law, 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution, that reads, slavery and voluntary servitude, except for those who are duly convicted of a crime, shall not exist in the United States or in its jurisdiction. There's an exception clause in the United States Constitution that allows us to understand that from the time that they ended chattel slavery in 1865, they established penal slavery. So there's been a continuance, right? Slavery was never abolished in this country. And so we want our people out of the prison penal slave system, right? And also we want our people to be tried by a jury of their peers, as I made mention already. And we want land. We want land. Malcolm X, Al-Haj Shabazz says revolutions are built and based upon liberation of land, right? And so we want the land. We want the bread. We want the housing. We want the education. We want clothing. We want justice for our people. And that's what the Black Panther Party represented. And because we represent it in a holistic way, right, control of our communities, right, we was a threat to the United States. But also keep in mind, Black Panther Party was a youth movement. Right?
Sir.
And it's important for us to really note that the majority of the individuals inside the Black Panther Party was under the age of 30. They were in their teens and in their 20s. These was young men and women who were getting their first job or just coming out of high school, right? Or still in high school. I was 16 years old when I joined the Black Panther Party, right? And so there was a youth movement, but it was disciplined.
Now, some people might judge that and say, like, 16 years old, you don't really know what it is that you want. Are Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton and these older members taking advantage of these young teens that want to do something constructive and productive? So some people view.
Wait a minute, are you saying being part of the Black Panther Party was not constructive or productive?
No, I mean that the danger of it actually is what people criticize in terms of the youth being involved in the party, and then also
let me ask this question. We got youth out there in the streets right now in these tribes, in these street gangs. All right. So now you want to be involved in the street gangs and the tribes, or you want to be involved in something organized for working in the benefit of our people? So I don't understand the people's not understanding the value of the Black Panther Party and youth being involved, being instruments of change, right? Real civil change. It's like having young people join the Boy Scouts, right? Or join the Girl Scouts, okay? So they provide a service to the community. That's what the Black Panther Party was doing, right? Providing a service to the community. Only reason why the Black Panther Party had to resort to self-defense, remember the Black Panther Party original name was Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, right? Is because we knew that our community was under attack, right? Under attack. And so why would we not want to recruit young people, right, in generational structure for our movement, our struggle, and our fight? Keep in mind, right, during the Vietnam War, right, they were drafting 18-year-olds to go overseas to fight, right, to fight in Vietnam. So why the hell are they going to go to fight in Vietnam when we have 18-year-olds fighting right here at home, right? So that species a proposition that we are leading young people into danger, No, they're dangerous from the day they're born in this country, in a white supremacist country, having experienced over 400 years, 450 years of white supremacy.
Now, looking at what you just mentioned with the 10 points, and what the Panthers wanted, did they want these things from the government, or were they saying that these are the things that we want to do for ourselves, for the government to allow them to do these things, or were they asking for these things from the government? Like how do you take on that?
I think it's a combination of both, right? We said if the government is not providing the resources and services that they should provide their quote unquote citizens, right, then we have to find alternative means to do it for ourselves, right? In this instance, there's a point whereas either the government is going to take care of business or we're going to take care of our own business, right? And that's the point. They always want us to be dependent on the government. They don't want us to be independent and building for our own alternative systems of governing, all right? And then that way they can maintain control of us as a people. And that's their whole idea right there.
Did the party think that the government was gonna be able to give them these things, or did they already see it as a struggle and a fight for them to be able to accomplish these goals?
Frederick Douglass is known to have said that poverty sees nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. Right? And so therefore it is required of us to make demands on the system in order to receive the resources and things that we need out of our community. We have to demand that, because they're not just going to give it out willingly, right? Because they don't recognize us as being of value to them outside of them profiting from our labor, all right? And so for us, that's the kind of understanding that we have to grow towards, right? And decolonizing our thinking, decolonizing our mind. But remember, we are traumatized people. We have lived in a system for over 450 years, being told that you are a slave, being told you are subservient, being told that you are less than a human being, right? Why would we have to have a Black Lives Matter? Who didn't know that Black Lives Matter? You understand what I'm saying? You know,
Yes, sir.
this is how we've been conditioned, right? Over 400 years, right? That we are considered valueless. I'll give you another example. The example of 1968, when Martin Luther King went to Memphis in support of the sanitation workers strike, right? Why did these men have to wear a placard, a body placard that says, "I am a man," right? They're in the labor strike. Why would they have to say that I am a man? Because they've been dehumanized,
Right.
as human beings. And they have to make a public statement. Black Lives Matter. 40 years later, we have Black Lives Matter behind that, right? What has changed? Nothing, right? They still believe us to be less than. And that's the reason why it was important for us to build a force, right, that was supporting our lives, supporting our goals and justice, supporting our values, supporting our culture, reestablishing ourselves to our African heritage, okay? And let me make another point in regard to that as well. The majority of black people in this country live in South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, the Black Belt South. The majority of our black people still live there, right? Why? Because that's our ancestral homeland. How in the world people will live in a place for 450 years and don't have a homeland, right? They have not established themselves as a nation, within the nation, okay? The Black Belt South is our traditional homeland, just as the Sioux has in South Dakota and North Dakota, right? Just as the Apaches have Arizona and New Mexico, okay? The Cherokee has Oklahoma, and because they got migrated to Oklahoma, right? Oklahoma, but actually from Alabama and Georgia. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So where is the homeland? What is the traditional homeland for black people in this country? It's the Black Belt South. Okay. And we need to liberate the Black Belt South, right? Maintain control of that. That is our ancestral homeland in this place that is original name is called Turtle Island. And Black Panther Party was educating our people, organizing our people, preparing our people for that kind of power.
Got it. Now, at 16 years old, when you decided to join, what ultimately led to your decision, and what did you intend to do at 16 with the Black Panther Party?
Cool. Good question. And my story is different than many others, right? And I don't know how much different, but my story is this here. I was raised in a house where my family, my mother particularly, was activist. She was a member of the NAACP, And she used to take us out on marches and so forth. Not only that, but my mom was also a student of African dance as a young woman, right? And she used to teach African dance to my sister and I. And one thing that her teacher, her instructor, told her that you're African, right? And that's when she came back and told her children, we African, okay? All right, we're not a Negro. We're not a coon. We're not N-word, a colored person, or any other derogatory name. So I was raised with the idea of knowing myself as being of African descent, okay? And so for that alone, my POV was that. So anytime that I can see Black men, Black women rising up in regards to adhering to that heritage, that identity of who they are as a people, yes, I was with that. Okay. And so when I saw the Black Panther Party, two things. One, I had some comrades or some young brothers I was raised up with, in the streets. We used to have a gang in the streets, and we used to have a singing group, a doo-wop group. And we used to sing on the corners and stuff like that as a young kid, 15, 16 years old. They had since joined the Black Panther Party, my young friends, right? And as a result of them jumping the Black Panther Party, at the time they did, I was organizing the Black student units in my high school. Okay, that's what I was organizing, right, in the high school. So that it was a natural inclination for me to join a larger organization, a broader organization that's doing this work, right? But when I saw the Black Panther Party march into the Capitol building of California Capitol building with guns, I told my mom right then and said, "Mom, I'm gonna be one of them, cause they fighting for Black people. They about
What'd your mom say?
She wasn't having it. She wasn't feeling none of that. None of that. She was NAACP. You know what I mean? She believed in the idea of integration and assimilation, as part of the goals of the civil rights movement. A failure, of course, because these white folks never want us in their organization, in their government in the first place, right? Part of their reality in the first place. So we trying to force ourselves into a system and government that they don't want us, right? Never having and never will. Okay, and that's the reason why Dr. Martin Luther King, in his latter years, told Harriet Belafonte, right before he was assassinated, Harriet Belafonte, that he felt that he was ushering his people into a burning building, into a burning house. He began to understand that the system itself was in opposition to our very existence.
Great point. Great point. When you first joined, did you get to speak with Bobby Seale and Huey P, or were there other, people, members that you were associated with?
Bobby Seale and Huey, we never had face-to-face contact, right? I did have face-to-face contact with Eldridge Cleaver and with Kathleen Cleaver, all right, at some point in time. But no, Huey and Bobby, because I was in the San Francisco chapter, right?
Okay.
And they evolved out of the Oakland chapter. So very rarely did I used to go to Oakland for any particular reason. So that's the reason why.
So we all know that, when you first become a member, you get the autobiography of Malcolm X, you get the Red Book, you get the Wretched of the Earth, and a few other books. So can you talk about the significance of those books and why the party felt that new members had to read those books?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is imperative for each member of the Black Panther Party to go to PE classes, political education classes, right? Because for the most part, we have no understanding of the system and the theory of struggle, the theory of revolution, right? And so we have to learn this history of resistance, okay, this history of fighting back. And we had to learn from other peoples who have fought back in other parts of the world, right, fought against the, imperialism, right, or white supremacy and imperialism. And so for us, it was a way for us to build what we call group thought or group thinking, right? By having people in classes studying the same materials, talking about them, and essentially growing in relationships with one another where they're confident that the person that they're with, who they're pushing their life on the line with, right, has the same information, has the same understanding, believed as they believe in the course of building a movement. So the PE classes is very important. In fact, we need to reestablish PE classes across this country now. These young people that are out there don't have a clue what's going on in this country. Well, I mean, they have a clue what's going on in this country, but they have no understanding of the history of resistance in this country.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Because all of that has been essentially tried to be wiped out. And that's why this program that you're having right now is important, right? Because it's a means for which we can re-educate or re-inform, right, another generation. Because we lost 2 generations during the crack epidemic, right? Right? And as we well know, the crack epidemic was based upon what I call chemical warfare in our communities. Why I say chemical warfare? Because the crack and the cocaine that brought into our communities was brought there by the CIA, right? The Iron Contragate. Study that, and you'll know that they were trading guns for drugs and then building some of the drugs in our communities, getting the money to go buy more weapons for the fight for the Contras in Nicaragua. All right.
Yes, sir.
So they targeted our community for chemical warfare, and as a result of that, we lost two generations off the map. Right? That's biological chemical warfare on our people. Right? But we don't understand it as that, and the arrogance of it that they tell you, they make movies, right, letting you know. Yeah, we put cocaine in these communities and saturate these communities with drugs.
And it says a lot about just where Black people were heading, prior to that time frame. And
we're building power.
yes, sir.
Absolutely. Right. And so when they diminish the capacity for the Black Panther Party to operate and to function, right, they saturate our community with drugs. Okay. And so therefore doping the community. So they no longer have that spirit and that fire to fight back. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the basis of that, they started the foundation for mass incarceration, school to prison pipeline, right? And building out these prisons and also building what they call private prisons, because the prison system is a slave system.
Mm.
So who are the majority of people in the slave system? Black and brown people. The same people that enslaved back in the 1860s and 1500s, right? This is their goal. This is their objective, to keep us in a state of enslavement, keep us in a state of control, right? Keep us in a state where they continue to profit off our labor. And if they can no longer profit from our labor, we become expendable.
Mm.
They have no use for us anymore.
Great points. Great points. So we mentioned that a lot of the Black Panther Party involved young people. Now, I recently looked at a documentary about women of the Black Panther Party, and they were saying that 6 out of 10 members, which I didn't even know, were women. And I think a lot of that gets lost in the history. So what was your experience with women in the Black Panther Party? What was their role? What was their contribution?
One thing that a lot of people don't know, I think the third person to join the Black Panther Party was a woman, right? Out of Bobby Hutton, Huey, Bobby Seals, right? And then came her sister. I can't remember her name right now. I think it was Janet, right? Joined the Black Panther Party. Okay. And these sisters hold positions of captains, right? Lieutenants, right? They hold positions as managing officers, right? They hold positions of, and we have some that will get down on the streets and fight back, physically get busy. Okay. And so on every level where the women had the opportunity, right, to be in leadership position. Okay. Now, this is not to say that the party did not have chauvinism, right? Remember, both of us were brothers and sisters off the block, right? So we brought some of those negativities into the party until we was able to purge ourselves of that, right? Of course, of understanding the discipline of the movement and discipline of the party, right? But women play a crucial role. I'll give you an example of a couple of them. Sophia Asa Bukhari, right? Now, we'll keep this in mind. Sophia Asa Bukhari was a college student. Her name was Bernice Jones before she changed her name. She was a college student, right? And she saw police, this is in Harlem, saw police beating up a Panther because he's selling his newspapers. So she wanted to find out why that happened. She went to the office to find out. When she went to the office to find out, she joined, became a member of the Black Panther Party. Okay. Yeah. That's by virtue of investigation, you know what I'm saying? Why they beat up these brothers? Okay, she became a member of the Black Panther Party. After the Panther 21 case, when the whole leadership of the Black Panther Party in Harlem and Brooklyn and Queens were taken off, was sent to jail on the Panther 21 case, who rise up to maintain the party's office? Sophia Bukhari, right? And then we came to the time where some of our revolutionary members was captured, had to figure out ways how to get out. Who was the woman who tried to help them get out of prison? Sophia Bukhari. To the point where she went into the underground, right? And eventually got captured. Went to did her time in Goochland, Virginia, federal prison, right? And escaped out of federal prison because they wouldn't give her the medical treatment that she needed, right? She escaped, went and got her medical treatment, and went back into the underground. When she got recaptured, she defended herself in court and won. Right? After she won her case, eventually she got paroled, got out of prison. You know what she did? Got right back into the movement. Right back in the movement. She's the co-founder, along with myself and Barbara Herman Ferguson, of the National Jericho Movement. All right? So this is the kind of character of women that was engaged in the Black Panther Party. Afeni Shakur, right? The Panther 21 case, she defended herself in that case. That's the kind of audacity, confidence, right? Some would say, white folks would say arrogance, right? To believe that you could go up against the state and win. Okay, that's the kind of courage that the sisters had in the Black Panther Party. Yes.
Part of that too, a lot of the women were educating and part of the free breakfast program. And one of the interesting things about the free breakfast program is that prior to the free breakfast program, the United States government had no program of feeding children in school, really, like breakfast or lunch. So
all that you find these kids getting fed in schools today came from the Black Panther Party.
Yes, sir. Right. So
the programs that have transportation to prisons go visit your loved ones.
Yeah,
Black Panther Party started that.
Yes, sir.
The Black Panther Party, when the Black Panther Party had a newspaper, right? You used to put out 250,000 newspaper a month, right? In the newspaper, right? Across the country. And it was handed from hand to hand at least 5 times, right? We was reaching at least 1 million people a month telling our story of resisting this country. Yeah. The government felt we was a threat because we was organizing, we was building, okay? Yeah, chapters across the country, right? At the height of the party, they said about 5,000 members. 5,000 members are in the party across the country, okay? It's young people, young people who love their people, was willing to put their life and their liberty on the line through the struggle. Yeah. We was a force to be reckoned with, no doubt about it.
Yes, sir. And I did want to spend some time just chatting about the breakfast program. And in your view, like from what you were seeing of it, like what the impact of it was and why there needed to be a breakfast program in the first place.
We've taken some of the resources, taking our resources from out of our community and feeding our children, right? Taking off some of the anguish of these mothers and these fathers, all right, who is impoverished, right? And we know that the children do better when they have a proper meal before they go to school. Okay, right? And so that was a dynamic means for which we can ensure that our children are fed and have nutrition, right? And so they can grow healthy. All right. And you know what the police did in certain raids? They went in there and tore up all the food, pissed on the eggs and the bread, right? To destroy the Black Panther Party. And other times they was going in the community, FBI was going in the community telling the community that we were poisoning our children. Right? The food was poisoned. That's the kind of reprehensible, nasty, right, behavior, right? Racist behavior that we were confronting and trying to show our children. And so in the course of doing so, we also gave our children a foundation, right? What we're now called the Panther Cubs, right? We gave them a foundation so they can go out in the world and understand what is the threat against them, right, and how to overcome it.
Right.
And to this day, we need to start building what we call liberation schools and also free breakfast programs for our children to this day. Because they're getting ready to take all the resources from our communities right now.
That's a fact.
Right? They're in the process of doing it, right? And they're so doing, we got to figure out ways how we're going to survive this matter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Another program was the medical clinics that the Panthers provided. So can you talk about some of the issues in the medical field at the time that this happened and why it was a necessity to have free medical clinics?
Health services in our community was negligent, right? It did not exist, okay, for the most part, okay, out of our communities. And so therefore, we had to figure out ways how to establish our own means for which we can protect ourselves. We are people who have the highest degree of diabetes, highest degree of heart ailments, the highest degree of liver problems, right? Arthritis, all the forms of people who live in impoverished conditions, malnutrition, based on malnutrition, not having the proper foods, proper housing, and so forth. We have been affected by that, right? So therefore, we had to figure out ways how to address those issues when we know that the system itself will not do it for us, right? And so we established these breakfast, established these health clinics across the country to deal with blood pressure, to deal with diabetes, to deal with all the certain ailments that was going on in our community, and try to keep our community as healthy as possible. But also keep this in mind as well, right? The doctors and the nurses who supported us were themselves revolutionary. Okay, right, and they function in that capacity. All right, we have sisters and brothers, and we have white folks, right, doctors, right, who supported our camp, who supported our breakfast program, who supported our health clinics. And at times, when the Black Liberation Army had to make moves, and someone was hurt, it was those same doctors and nurses who went into the underground and provided us the necessary equipment and materials to patch us up, right, and try to save us from injury and harm. Right. Yeah. So
Yes,
that was
sir.
also important too.
Yes, sir. And I know sickle cell anemia was a big part of that as well. That was hugely ignored in the medical field.
Absolutely. And it was Black Panther Party that made it a national issue.
Now, you were talking about race a bit with the Panthers, and sometimes history paints things as black and white. But when we look at the Panthers, some people identify them as a racist organization and only black. But the actuality was that they partnered with groups like the Young Lords, which were a Puerto Rican nationalist group, the Brown Berets, Mexican nationalist group, the American Indian Movement, Native American nationalist group, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Students for Democratic Society, even yes, Patriot Party. The list goes on. Even
and
a section
party was white folks, the Appalachians, poor white people. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it was the Black Panther Party that created the idea of the Rainbow Coalition. It came from Fred Hampton, okay, before it was co-opted by Jesse Jackson, Rainbow Coalition, right? Where he went in, and anybody had seen the movie Judas and the Messiah, right? There's a section in there where he talked about where Fred Hampton went into places, right, with white folks and brown folks and tried to organize them, and in fact organize them, building towards what we call a anti-fascist front, right, in this country. So no, the Black Panther Party has never been quote unquote a racist. You've never been called a racist organization, right? You can never be. That is something that the FBI and the government tried to impose upon, tried to create a narrative, a false narrative about the Black Panther Party.
Yes, sir.
We say black power to black people, and we say all power to the people. Okay, I mean everybody.
Yes, sir. And like you mentioned, there was even a White Panther Party that was interested in.
Oh, listen, bro. During that course of time, we had Panthers all around the world. We had Great Panthers. We had Pink Panthers. We had the Fidayeen in Palestine, which were also Panthers. We had Simba Panthers in Africa. Right, yeah. All right. The Panther movement became international. Okay.
So looking at some of the controversies around the Panther parties and things in hindsight, Huey mentions a bit too about just thoughts about if they really should have utilized guns in the party at all, and if that was an easy way of the police attacking Panthers and murdering Panthers and getting rid of the party. So just wanted to know your thoughts on guns, and do you think that it was more of a positive or a negative as it relates to hindsight, looking back at the party and how afterwards there were gun laws passed that prevented open carry in California due to the Panthers.
Yeah, as I made mention when they went to the Capitol building, when Panthers went to the Capitol building holding guns, right? Ronald Reagan, who was the governor of California at that time, came up with what we call the Mumford Act. The Mumford Act was to remove the Californian residents from having open carry guns, open carry weapons, right? And the reason why they did it because black people was carrying weapons, right? Right now they got they got weapons buyback, right? They got all kinds of forms in which they can disarm the community, and on the same token, white folks, right? The Aryan Brotherhoods, the Nazis, the Proud Boys, and etc., right? They're armed to the T. And the black community is disarmed. They disarm the black community. What is that? What that portends? And we know the history of this country, right? Like Tulsa, like various other cities, Rosewood, and various other cities that they destroyed, right? Massacred people. Right? The word riot doesn't come from black people. It came from white folks. White folks wanted to create the red riot because they were around rioting against black people, killing black people on a mass level, right? If anybody's interested, go to Google massacres of black people from 1516, I think it was, right? 1516, the massacre of black people. If you Google it, they give you a whole list of all various massacres that happened to most black people in the country. So yes, Black Panther Party, original name was Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, right? And there was a rule in the Black Panther Party that you must have a shotgun in your house to defend yourself, right? That was a rule in the party, right? Every party member, every party household used to have that minimum, used to have the shotgun in their house to defend their building, to defend themselves, and to defend their domain. All right. And so now let's understand this as well, right? When Huey came out of prison, while he was in prison, and Elder Skilby had took basic control of the Black Panther Party, right? Our militancy had grown to a point where we fielded the Black Liberation Army, right? Rule number 6 of the Black Panther Party was that no Black Panther Party member can join an underground organization except for the Black Liberation Army. So the inception of the Black Panther Party, there was an understanding between Huey and Bobby at some point in time that we would have to engage in armed struggle, right? And so in the course of our development of our movement, it became to a point whereby we, in fact, were defending ourselves against the attacks of the state, right? When Huey came out, he wanted to move away from that and reestablish the party in the social programs from which they was originally came into existence, right? Building the programs, had that kind of attachment and building an actual a electoral type of party. That's what we want to do, okay? Unfortunately, he did not have an understanding of how the party had evolved in his absence, right? And one of the things that he should have done or could have done would have changed the trajectory of our struggle today, where we are today. He should have told the Black Panther Party and the militant wing of the Black Panther Party to go underground. Every era, go underground. And then he would have established a new above ground organization that would support the underground movement, right? That would took our struggle to a whole different level, right? But he didn't have the vision to understand that. And partly because I think that he was psychologically traumatized, right? Having been under that kind of pressure, right? Having experienced prison, okay?
And isolation for a lot of that time.
And isolation, absolutely. So coming out, he didn't want to experience that again. He didn't want to go through those kind of circumstances again. And naturally, right? And so he wanted to move the party into a more legitimizing its existence in the context of the American political structure, right? But he wanted to build the party so that it became more viable in terms of providing the services that originally came into existence to do, right? And to withdraw from the militancy that had evolved at the point of when he went after he went inside, after he was captured and went inside. So those are lessons learned in terms of how we engage in struggle and how we have to build our movement going forward.
Right. So when we look at the dismantling of the party, a lot of it has to do with COINTELPRO and the police system and the FBI. Do you think that the party underestimated the power of the police and the FBI?
Absolutely. That goes without question, right? One of the things I said, remember, we was a youth movement. So in terms of our political maturity, we're infantile, right? We didn't know to the extent of what this beast would do to destroy the party. They used every tactic that they used to destabilize a nation to destroy the party. Infiltration, provocateurism, poison pen letters, assassination, assault, right? Everything to undermine the existence of the party, all right? Everything they used to destabilize the country, that's what they used against the Black Panther Party to destroy the Black Panther Party, right? If we understand the nature of the beast, right, perhaps we would take a different approach, right, and how we fight these people and build and have move more towards the ideas of building a mass and popular movement, right? And we didn't do that, and then because of our immaturity, right, being young people, and we were gung ho. We put it that way, right? And I believe in our practice, okay? And so that gave them the opportunity to use what resources, talking about the state, the government used what resources they could in order to undermine and destroy the Black Panther Party.
Now, I did interview a former FBI agent, not during the time of the Black Panthers, but probably a little bit after she started, and I asked her about her views on J. Edgar Hoover and the whole COINTELPRO movement, and she felt, in her opinion, that what she researched, of course, from that end of that side, was that they were really concerned about the Black Panthers because of their communist views. Looking at the communism aspect of it and trying to spread communism in the United States, as opposed to just a racist, as opposed to having racist intentions, but they looked at the danger of the party as spreading communism. So what do you think about that?
That's a false flag, right? In as much as the Black Panther Party promoted the idea of socialism, the main idea of the Black Panther Party was not socialism or communism, it was communalism. And communalism, if you read Huey P. Newton's, I think the book is To Die for the People, right? Or Revolutionary Suicide, one of them. All right, he talks about intercommunalism, right? And that was, the name of the paper at one point in time was called Black Panther Party Intercommunalism, all right? And that was the goal, to internationalize our struggle, right? And you go back into a tradition of African tradition of communal living, okay? So the resources in our community are shared amongst our people in a way that's equitable, okay? That's what they're afraid of, right? Remember that the system of capitalism is based upon two ideals, right? Individualism and competition, right? If you remove individualism from capitalism, you don't have capitalism, right? If you remove competition from capitalism, you don't have capitalism. All right. So what's the opposite of individualism and individualism and competition? Cooperation and unity. So the Black Panther Party was building cooperation and unity amongst all the people, right? But they want to label that as being communist. So you're building unity, you're building cooperation with all kinds of people for the purpose of fighting against a system that wants to keep us divided, individualistic, and in competition with one another, class struggle. You see? So that's it's a red herring. It's a red flag, right? It has nothing to do with the real reality of the circumstances of the Black Panther Party and the ideas of intercommunalism.
Understood. Now, another criticism of the party was that they didn't really vet new members enough. So some older members felt that there should have been more vetting, and that would have prevented, people from, undercover agents from coming in and some of the inner fighting that was happening within the party. So what do you think about that?
No, I think it's absolutely correct. Our recruitment processes of the party was a little bit too open, right? You come in Black Panther Party, go to training, go to PE classes, may graduate to go to TE classes, technical education classes and programs, right? But for the most part, we allow anyone who wants to be part of the party become part of the party without having the kind of vetting that we need to do. Now, we did be able to pick out and discover, right, infiltrators in certain instances, okay? Those who was working in cooperation with the authorities, all right? But I don't know how is it possible to vet someone who are deep undercover agents, okay? The only way you can do that, you have to test them, right? And we were not prepared to test everybody coming to the party to see whether or not they were ready to get down, way things need to get down. So yes, I accept that criticism. It is constructive. It is, in fact, that we did not have the kind of vetting processes that would diminish the potential for infiltration and provocateurism.
Now, after the dismantling of the party, when interviewed, a lot of party members, were asked, like, what are some of your biggest regrets? And some of them say because, they were going into hiding and dealing with some of the police violence, that they, were not able to raise their kids in the way that they would want to. And, a lot of members felt like they should have spent more time with their kids, and they missed a big part of that family structure in life. Do you think the party did enough to support family structure, or do you think it was a necessity that members were not connected with their family for safety reasons and things like that?
I don't think that the people that you talk to about that, I don't think I don't know who they were, right? I don't know their circumstances, okay? and saying that they were not able to be with their children. In the Black Panther Party, we had the kids in reference programs. We had the kids in the education program. We had the kids hanging out in the office at times. We had communal babysitting for our children. All right, so that I don't understand. But for those who went to prison, right, got caught up in prison, that's a different story, right? Their absence was felt very hard. I give my own experience. My daughter was in the womb, right, when I got captured at the age of 19, and as people may not know, right, I did 49 years inside the U.S. penal slave system. 49 years. When I got out of prison, my daughter was 50 years old when she got out of prison. When I got out of prison, okay. So that's a lifetime span of our separation. Now, yes, she used to visit me in prison, right? We had conjugal visits in prison. I tried to maintain my relationship with her. Right? At one point in time, at age of 16, when she was getting some stuff, right? I told her I was living in New York. I was in prison in New York. I said, "You come to New York for the summer, and that's whole summer you're gonna spend time with me," right? So I tried to do my very best in terms of being a father figure for her, right? But it was hard. It's difficult, right? And to this point, to this day, right? We still have that kind of, separation, right? Where we can't really get that close as we that bonding that we really like to have, right? Because I wasn't there for the crucial areas of her. I wasn't there for her graduation, right? I wasn't there for when she got married. I wasn't there when she born her first child, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Her first love, right? I wasn't there for her prom, right? Those are the kinds of things that lingers in terms of that relationship. That's sacrifice. That's what I sacrificed, right? And so if there's any other regret that, as you may mention, not being with your child, right? For the time that I spent in prison, okay, yeah, that's my regret. That's my only regret.
Enough said about that, man. Yeah, I'm glad, you guys were able to establish, a bond, after prison. So a lot of Panther Party members either, when the dismantling happened, some of them were murdered and some of them were arrested and imprisoned. You were there for a long time. What was happening in prison at that moment in time, and what was your experience, with the party in prison?
I was arrested on August 28th, 1971. The week prior to that, my arrest, they had murdered our dear comrade, beloved comrade, Field Marshal George Lester Jackson in San Quentin Prison. All right. So the following week, me and my comrades went out to retaliate against his murder. Right. Unfortunately, we had technical problems. We had a car chase, shootout. I got captured. Okay. August 20, 1971. Okay. Now, having been captured, I knew for myself that I'm going to be a political prisoner of war. All right. So it moved the terrain. It moved me out of minimum security, put me in maximum security. But the struggle continued. Right. The conditions inside prison continue to be oppressive. And so while I was in prison, I continued to organize. Right. They changed the terrain, but the war continued. The struggle continued. So no matter where I'm at, I'm going to be engaged. Okay. Because I understood. Remember what I told you, I'm African. You know what I mean? That's my POV. I'm not going to accept no oppression from the white folks, period. Right? And so inside prison, while I was in San Quentin, I started the first national prisoners newspaper called Army Spirit. Right? I had the first march to the UN. Right? Started a national petition campaign to the United Nations talking about the existence of political prisoners, right? And the conditions inside prisons. Right? The first petition was ever heard coming from prisoners and recorded by the United Nations. Okay. In 1998, I started the National Jericho movement, right, in support of political prisoners. In 2018, I initiated, but I was part of the initiation of the Spirit of Mandela Coalition that had the International Tribunal in 2021 find the United States guilty of the charges of genocide against Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. So I wrote 2 books while I was inside. We Are Our Own Liberators. I don't know if you can see this here. Yes, We Are Our Own Liberators. Right, it's one of the books I wrote. And the other book, let me see if I can find it right quick. I got a method here. I can't find it right now. But the other book is Escaping the Prison, Fade to Black. So I continue to be organized in prison. I organized while I was in prison. Listen, I was organized before I came to prison. I'm organized while I was in prison. I became organized while I'm back out when I got back out of prison. That's the work that I do. That's who I am.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Now, looking at movements today, like I see a lot of people, they start movements and they stop, they're on again, off again. We saw, like the Black Lives Matter movement, like it was hot. Everybody was out in the streets and protesting and doing this, and it dies out. Where you have Panther Party members like yourself that are still active after all these years, that are in prison active, that are in their communities active. What is it about the party that is different than these other organizations and movements? And what do you think some of these movements need to embody to keep?
They must have ideological clarity, and they must have a specific goal that they want to achieve. Right? Just saying that you love black people and you just want to make conditions better for black people is not enough. All right? I'm saying it's good, but it's not enough. Right? And if you don't have the ideological discipline, right, that was taught to Black Panther Party members, then your movement's going to be, if nothing more, it'll fall into conditions of sectarianism, right? Or it'll fall into conditions of hero worshiping, okay? And that's problematic. And so for us, with Black Panther Party, we had an ideological foundation, right? We studied together, right, in chapters, okay? So we had that kind of cohesion, right? So we didn't just operate out of emotions, because Black Lives Matter was out of emotions. I think after the death of Trayvon Martin, right, they came up with the hashtag, right, or Michael Brown with the hashtag.
Right.
So it was a hashtag movement. It wasn't no ideological foundation for it. It wasn't the basis of all these are our goals and objectives and what we're going to achieve, right? It was a comparable to the civil rights movement, right? And so for those kinds of organizations, and we got to pop it up. They will be popping up now even more so under this administration that we have today, this fascist administration that we have today. Well, they pop up resistors. Okay, what they need to do is find themselves into an organization that has some standing, right, and become disciplined to learn the science of revolution. It is science. Okay. Learn the science of revolution and be committed. In my book, there's a chapter in my book called Commitment is the Key. We're all liberators. Commitment is the key. If you don't have a commitment, you're done. And more often, the individuals, and another thing is that we have to decolonize our mind, to decolonize our thinking. Because the leaders of the Black Lives Matter, they still had petty bourgeois ideas, right? They still were cultural nationalists, right? They weren't revolutionaries. You see, all right? They're cultural nationalists. They have petty bourgeois ideas, right? And they function in that capacity, right? So that's a lesson learned, all right?
Yes, sir.
And so we have to get engaged in class struggle, right? We have to challenge our quote unquote petty bourgeois, national bourgeoisie, black folks, right? We have black people in high places, right? They ain't doing nothing for black folks. You see what I'm saying? We have black people who wants to be validated by white people, right? That's how they validate themselves, because of the degree of low self-esteem that's been imposed upon us by being told for centuries that you're supporting it, right? That you're less than, right? So they gratiate themselves to white folks to feel some degree of value, okay? That's a struggle we have to engage in. And so for these hashtag movements, right, for the most part, it's nothing but show.
Got you. They gotta live it, embody it. Yeah, I think obviously Black Panthers are one of the greatest examples of what a revolutionary is, and how to live a lifestyle of it. Like almost every party member you speak to still has that, that pride in their heart and the spirit in their eyes, and they could be 70, 80 years old and still remember.
I'm 73, bro.
Yes, sir. I hope I look as good as you when I'm 73, by the way. Then you know what I'm saying?
Exercise, bro. Exercise. You gotta get out there and eat and try to eat right. And find you a good, I think you have one, but find you a good partner.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Someone who you be committed to, right? It helps preserves. Yes.
Yes, sir. So 100, 200 years down the line, like when people want to know about the Black Panthers, they're probably going to look for books. They're going to look for movies. They're going to look for documentaries. You being a member, what are some of them that you feel like that really hold true to the true ideas of the party in terms of books, movies, or documentaries that you can think of?
You can go YouTube and type in Black Panther Party, and all kinds of information will come up, right? You can hear the lectures of Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seals, and I don't know if you hear anything. I have not heard anything from Eldridge Cleaver, but you can definitely get it from Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seals. Read his book. Read Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver. Read Seize the Time by Bobby Seals. Read Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton and To Die for the People by Huey P. Newton. Read Blood in My Eye, right, by George Jackson. Those are areas of, and then if you outside of that, then read Franz Fanon, Wretched of the Earth. Read Richard Dubray, Revolution in the Revolution. Read Carlos Margiela, Guerrilla Warfare, right? On the mini called the Mini Manual, okay, by Carlos Margiela. There's a host of books. Read We Are Our Own Liberators.
Yes, sir.
Right? Read this book, okay? This book is holding it down now. I wrote this book 30 years ago. That's when I first started writing this book, about 30 years ago, right? But I wrote it with the idea that people are not going to be ready what I have to say at the time it was written, right? I was future focused. I was writing for the future, where people are going to be ready for what I'm presenting here. And now, I got study. People got study groups on this book. They are study book clubs on this book. Okay, they're preparing themselves for what has been offered in this book, right? Because I ain't bite my tongue. I don't bite my tongue. Okay, now I'm telling you like it is. If you accept it or reject it, that's up to you, right? But I'm gonna tell these truths.
Any movies or documentaries, by the way, some people don't read,
Yeah. There are several movies. There's movies about George Jackson. You see those movies. There's movies called Spook Sat by the Door, right? It was an excellent movie for that time, and lessons learned for this time is another movie. We are doing documentaries now. We're organizing. We're building documentaries now to preserve this history, this legacy of resistance.
Were you a fan of Judas and the Black Messiah?
Keep in mind that Judas and the Black Messiah was the story of a snitch.
Yes, sir.
Collaborator.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's what the story of, right? It wasn't the story of Fred Hampton. It was the story of a collaborator. His relationship with Fred Hampton brought Fred Hampton into the story. Okay. But it was basically the story of a collaborator. Now, what is interesting about that is how the government will use someone, will turn someone, okay, as they did to this guy. What he had a car theft or something like that. He got arrested. He won't go back to jail, and they flipped it. Okay, and so he was not grounded. He was not committed to the ideology of the movement and of the struggle. He wasn't. All right, and that's one of the issues we talked about vetting earlier, right? So it is not a bad movie if you know how to extract the information from it, the good parts from it. But I don't recommend people go and see a movie based upon a snitch, based upon a collaborator. I don't do that.
There was an earlier, I think, 1990s movie too about the party. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. I want to say it was in the 90s, in the late 90s.
I probably didn't see it. I was inside.
Yeah, you got to check it out. Yeah, there's a few. Definitely some documentaries. Vanguards of the Revolution I could think of.
That is a good one. There's another book. I can't remember the name of it right now. I can't remember it right now. But yeah,
Yes, sir.
There's several.
So in another world, another reality, let's say COINTELPRO doesn't exist, the Black Panther Party continues to exist. They continue to have a global reach and spread throughout the entire world. What do you think is the global impact for Black people at this point in time?
We'd be free. This country, it'd be a whole different country, right? We would have successfully organized our people and organized other people to resist the system of capitalism, to resist the system of racism, of white supremacy, to resist the ideas of fascism, right, and Nazism, right? We'd be a whole different country. Remember all the major gains in this country? The major gains in this country as a result of black people fighting, brown people fighting, Asian people fighting, right? Indigenous people fighting back. That's how we make changes in this country, right? If you leave it up to white folks, yeah, that's a whole different story.
Yes, sir.
So right now we're in dire straits today, right? Because this country is no longer a democracy. It is not, right? We have the trappings and the illusions of democracy, right? Because they allow you to vote every 2 to 4 years for someone who is either a millionaire or want to be a millionaire. Okay, we have 13 billionaires in the White House cabinet right now. We don't live in a plutocracy. We don't live in a democracy anymore. It's a plutocracy. The rich rules, right? We have an individual who's a criminal, a convicted felon running this country, an avowed white supremacist running this country. He put in place a white supremacist in head of the Secretary of Defense, the Navy, the Army, the Marines, the National Guard, the Coast Guard, are white supremacists, right? They have a Proud Boy who's investigating terrorist organizations, or what they call terrorist extremists and terrorist organizations. Proud Boy. Okay, this country is gone. It's done. Okay, this guy, he said he wants to be the king. He announcing himself to be a dictator. The point is this: 79 million people voted for this character. 79 million, and I imagine there's about 30 million who didn't vote who are sympathetic. That's 100 million people who are anti-black. Let's understand that, right? They voted in behalf of white supremacy. Okay, so what that means for us, right? We're talking about people who support genocides.
It means we're our own labor. We are our own liberators. That's what it means.
That's exactly what it means.
That's what it means.
It
Yes, sir.
have to be.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Now, just from your take, what do you think the legacy of the party should be when we think about the Black Panther Party? People establish what they want with it, but as a member yourself, what is it that you want your grandkids, your great grandkids to know and understand about the legacy of the party? And what advice do you have for people that want to embody, some of the principles and the foundations of the party?
Yeah, first of all, you have love for yourself. If you can't have love for yourself, you don't have love for nobody else. Right? Al-Haj Malik Shabazz once stated, "Who taught you to hate yourself?" Right? Who taught you to hate yourself? To hate your big lips and your wide nose and your black skin and your kinky hair, right? Your brown eyes. Now we have men and women, the Michael Jackson syndrome, bleaching their face. They said he had a peachy or something of that nature. I don't know whether he did or not, right? We have people, sisters walking around with blonde wigs, right? And blue contact lenses, right? Trying to look like Barbie, right? That's self-hatred. So one of the things that Black Panther did was self-love. We believe and love our people, right? And we understood that we was under threat of annihilation, more so now than we ever have been. All right, because we have in government today people who believe in genocide. That's the intent. They are building a white Christian nationalist country. And if you ain't white, if you ain't Christian, we have problems. We have issues. Okay. And so the legacy of the Black Panther Party is that we established the foundation for black people to love black people. Right? We raised the foundation for black people to love humanity. Right? All of humanity. Right? So we raise that level of understanding that we are living in a system that's based upon the ideas of competition and individualism, but also it's anti-black. Okay. Have been from the inception. Right? The Civil War, you just keep this in mind. The Civil War, right? Those by the Confederates, right? These are the same people who are now in the White House. The same ideological foundation. When I'm talking about ideology, you have an ideological foundation. The same ideology they had back then, the same ideology they have today. white supremacy. You see? So we need to have an ideological foundation to support us from generation to generation. Because our struggle is generational, right? It's not a marathon. I mean, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon, okay? And we need to be able to pass on that legacy to the next generation, the legacy of resistance, something they don't teach us.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
We have to teach ourselves.
Yes, sir. Man, Mr. Muntaqim, it's been a pleasure, man. A wealth of information for sure. Definitely, I think we got a very holistic view of the party, the purpose, what you guys were doing, and everything. So I appreciate, you sharing with us
Thank you for
today.
this opportunity. Thank you for
Yes.
giving this opportunity to share with your audience. And hopefully people will take what we discussed today, what we shared with each other today, and share with others. Right?
Yes, sir.
Gives
Yes,
us
sir.
understanding that as of this last election, Black people better learn how to get unified. Right? We got to get unified. Right? And in my book, What We Are Liberators, there's a section called Three-Phase Theory for National Independence. Right? If you don't have it, get the book. Right? They can go to blackdragonmme.com. blackdragonmme.com and get this book, We Are Our Own Liberators. Right? Establish study groups. Because this kind of book you need to read in a group. Okay? So that you have a broader understanding and shared understanding of what is being imparted in this book, is being shared in this book. Okay. And also, they need to go to spiritofmandela.org, right? And become part of what we call building the People's Senate, right? Which is also important. Why are we trying to build a People's Senate? Because the United States has been found guilty of genocides by an esteemed body of international jurists on October 25th, 2021. These people believe in genocides, and the United States has been found guilty of engaging in genocides against Black, brown, and indigenous people on 5 charges: mass incarceration, health inequities, environmental racism, police killing of our people, and resistance of political prisoners. Cumulatively, as the international jurists and esteemed body of international jurists from around the world reviewed this in materials that we presented to them, right, and determined that the United States is engaged in genocides against Black, brown, and indigenous people. So go to spiritofmandela.org, one word, spiritofmandela.org, tab over People's Senate, join.
Thank you for that, Mr. Muntaqim. Listeners, hope you got as much as I did. Definitely historical lesson today about the Panther Party. And definitely support the work of Mr. Muntaqim. Get the book, go to the website. And of course, remember, your mind is the most powerful tool in the universe. If you can think it, you can do it. If you believe in it, you can be it. And if you fight for it, you can have it. The world is yours. This has been your host, Mr.G, and I'll see you next time on MasterMine.
So every day I'm going hard. I'm talking business, bank accounts, and credit cards. And somehow we defeat the odds and making sure that no one starve illegal. All you had to